it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen. Beyond the four dimensions that man is aware of, there lies a mysterious fifth. It is a realm that is as big in size as the universe itself, and as timeless as eternity. It rests between the depths of man's worries and the pinnacle of his knowledge, and is the nexus between light and gloom, science and superstition. In tonight's story, we visit Christina, a young woman whose husband sadly passed years before his time. She dreams of him constantly and wishes to find a way to connect to him beyond the grave. Every night, Christina would dream that her husband was still alive. The dream would be so real for Christina. In Christina's dream, she would think her husband was dead, but then she would see him standing right in front of her on a busy street, smiling at her. Christina would run across the street toward her husband. But before she could embrace him and kiss him, her dream would end. The state executed the man who shot Christina's husband, and Christina witnessed the execution. The only one who stood by Christina's side was her older sister, Pamela. Pamela would always support and comfort Christina through hard times, and Christina needed her sister's support. She wanted to visit a psychic, and she wanted Pamela to come with her. Christina had heard stories about psychics contacting dead loved ones. The young woman thought she could reunite with her deceased husband through a psychic. She thought she could get the answers behind her husband's death. Well, Christina's sister didn't believe in psychics. Pamela didn't believe that psychics could contact dead loved ones. She thought they were fake, like Las Vegas magicians. She didn't want her sister to give money to a psychic. Pamela and Christina were sitting in the living room of a psychic's house. Christina had her 6-year-old daughter, Brianna, sitting on her lap. The little girl was with her father when he was killed. She was in the back seat of her daddy's car, and she was being taken to school. Brianna remembered laughing and singing with her father that morning. She never saw the face of the man who shot her daddy. She only saw a burly, masked man walking up to her father's car with a gun. "I'm only doing this because you're my sister and I love you," Pamela said to Christina. "I don't believe in this psychic stuff, and I think you're wasting your money." Pamela lightly fussed at her sister. "I appreciate you doing this," Christina said, while resting her hand on her sister's knee. "I know you think I'm an idiot for doing this, and I love you for supporting me anyway." And Christina meant what she'd said to her sister. She leaned over to hug Pamela, and she found solace in her sister's embrace. "I love you too." Pamela kissed her. "I also love my little baby princess," Pamela said to her niece through a smile. "I still think bringing Brianna to see this psychic was a bad idea." Pamela didn't let her displeasure stop her from kissing her niece and her sister, though. "It's funny that she said I looked like Marilyn Monroe with a nose ring." Christina laughed while mentioning how the psychic complimented her looks. Christina thought it was adorable how the old lady told her she was beautiful like her daughter. "I agree with her. You look like Marilyn Monroe with a nose ring." Pamela giggled while reaching over and touching her sister's arm. She wanted to say something else to Christina, but she held her tongue when she saw the old psychic walk into the living room carrying a tray of shortbread cookies and 3 glasses of iced tea. "I hope you girls are hungry. I made some shortbread cookies and sweet tea." The old psychic, whose name was Carol, presented her refreshments to Christina, Brianna, and Pamela with a whimsical enthusiasm. The old lady sat the tray of cookies and tea down on a table in front of Christina. She straightened out her bright yellow 1960s retro-style dress before sitting down in a recliner. "Oh, I love shortbread cookies," Christina exclaimed. She watched as her daughter quickly reached in to grab a cookie. "I can feel how much you miss your husband." Carol rested her hand on Christina's knee. The psychic wasted no time and went into her spiritual trance, but she made it, look normal. I can sense a tragedy. The man in your life died unjustly. He was a good young man. He was a good husband to you and a wonderful father to his daughter. I keep hearing the name, Brian. Was that your husband's name, darling? Carol asked her a question, but the old psychic already knew that she was on point, judging by the astonished look on Christina's face. Christina slowly put her hand over her mouth while trying not to cry. Brian was my husband's name, the young woman answered through a gasp. She couldn't believe how quickly Carol fell into her spiritual talents. A man shot your husband, is that correct? Carol asked through a soothing, experienced voice, which was just as relaxing as a tropical rainfall. Christina nodded. Yes, a man shot my husband while he was sitting in his car. Christina paused for a second, and she gulped while feeling tears boiling in her eyes. My daughter saw her daddy get killed. She was in the car with him. My poor baby saw everything. Christina bit her bottom lip after saying that, and she wiped away a tear that cascaded down her cheek. I'm sorry for crying. Christina giggled while holding tears in her eyes, and she smiled when the old psychic reached out and touched her face. You have nothing to be sorry about, darling, Carol whispered while helping Christina dry her face. The state executed the man who killed my husband. I was sitting in the witness room during the execution. It was the hardest day of my life. My sister was with me. She helped me get through it. Christina looked around at Pamela, and she took hold of her sister's hand. Pamela took a deep breath after her sister reached over to touch her hand. She caressed Christina's hand while locking her eyes on the psychic. I came here because I was hoping you could answer my question, Christina continued after holding and kissing her sister's hand. Is my husband at peace? Christina's soft voice trailed off into a grieving sigh. Carol gave Christina a comforting smile. The graceful wrinkles on her face complemented her embracing smile. I understand your question, darling. I will answer your question. Carol patted and caressed Christina's hand, and the old woman's smile was like a gorgeous vintage painting that you didn't want to take your eyes off of. Well, Pamela wanted to keep holding her sister's hand, but her body tightened and she breezily withdrew hers when Carol went back into a psychic trance. I can see, Carol gasped. The psychic had her eyes closed while holding Christina's hand. I can see... What is it? Christina leaned forward, closer to Carol, gripping the old lady's hand. Oh, I didn't have to call him. He was already there. My God, he's a handsome young man. Carol gasped from amazement. You can see him. Please, tell me. Christina was eager to know what Carol was seeing beyond her closed eyes. The young widow didn't mean to raise her voice at Carol, and she apologized. I'm sorry, I just want to know. It's okay, darling. Carol showered her sweet voice all over Christina. I see your husband. He's standing before me. Carol's voice drifted down into a calming whisper. He looks happy. He's so handsome, and he's wearing a black leather blazer and blue jeans. Carol gave her description of Brian. Oh, he wore his black leather blazer on the morning he was killed, Christina whispered while cleaning tears off her face. Daddy! Brianna shouted with excitement. The little girl looked around the living room to see if she could spot her father. Well, in the child's mind, she thought her daddy was invisible. Why can't I see my daddy? Brianna asked to the psychic curiously. Oh, you can't see him, honey, because he only wants me to see him. He's in the spirit world, Carol told the child. He sees you, though. He said, tell my little buttercup that Daddy says hi and that he misses you. Carol told Brianna through a short, delighted laugh. Oh, I miss you too, Daddy, Brianna shouted. And the little girl became overwhelmed with excitement when she knew that the old lady was speaking to her father. He wants me to tell you He will always be with you and that he loves the little sunflowers on your dress. Carol continued to deliver the news to Brianna. He wanted me to tell you he's sorry about what happened that morning. He said you and him were in the car singing the theme song to Sesame Street. He says that he misses singing Sunny Days with his little buttercup. He wants me to tell you that Daddy will always love you. Carol felt water in her eyes while she was telling Brianna everything that her father wanted her to say. But Pamela felt creeped out by the moment. The woman stood up and she broke into a nervous sweat while listening to the psychic. "Oh, he wants your daughter to cover her ears," Carol continued. "There's something he wants me to tell you, but he doesn't want Brianna to hear it." The smile was melting off Carol's lips. "Brianna, cover your ears, baby," Christina told her daughter, obeying her husband's orders. After doing so, she didn't know what to expect next. "Your husband has something he wants you to know." Carol's eloquent and grandmotherly voice filled the atmosphere in her living room. "First, he wants me to tell you he loves you so much and that he misses your touch and your kiss." Carol moaned sorrowfully after she repeated what Brian's spirit wanted her to say. "Oh, I love you too, baby. I miss you so much," Christina shouted out to her husband's spirit while wiping tears from her face. "Did he hear me?" Christina asked Carol with urgency in her trembling voice. She released a joyous laugh through her tears when Carol replied to her with a nod of her head. "I heard you, honey," Carol whispered to Christina while caressing the woman's hand. "He said that you and Brianna will always be his babies, and he loves the both of you more than anything." Carol paused for a minute while taking a deep breath. "There's something he needs to tell you, and he says it will be disturbing." Carol's voice became firm, but it never lost its gentleness. "What does he need to tell me?" Christina wished she could hear her husband's voice. The young woman made sure that her daughter's ears were still covered. Carol licked her lips while cradling Christina's hand in both of her sweaty palms. "It's about his murder. He's telling me that his murder wasn't random. It was an assassination." Carol was delivering the news to Christina as fast as she could. She could still see the spirit of a tall, dark and handsome man standing before her and instructing her on what to tell his wife. "What's he talking about?" Carol's words had confused Christina. Her heart was pounding against her chest and her throat was so dry that when she swallowed it felt like someone was pinching her esophagus. "Keep your ears covered, baby," Christina repeated to her daughter while reaching over her little girl to grab her glass of iced tea. Pamela was still standing, and the sweat from her body was soaking her white dress. The woman's heart was thumping in her throat, and she wanted to stop the psychic, but she couldn't talk. All she could do was reach for her purse. "He says that the man who shot him was a paid hitman." Carol's voice trembled a little as she continued speaking. "Your husband tells me that a woman paid the man who killed him. The woman was yours." But before Carol could finish her sentence, she heard a loud click echo through her living room. Christina swallowed hard when she looked around to see her older sister pointing a loaded semi-automatic pistol at Carol. "Don't say another word," Pamela hissed at Carol after pulling the gun out of her purse. "You were going to tell her everything?" Pamela broke down in tears while keeping her gun steady on Carol's face. "How did you know? How was he talking to you? He's supposed to be dead." Pamela gulped while shaking her head in disbelief. Carol stayed calm in the face of Pamela's handgun. "Oh, if you shoot me, it won't stop the truth from coming out, darling." Carol spoke calmly. The old lady wasn't afraid of dying, and she knew that her psychic abilities would come at a cost. "You stupid old woman!" Pamela roared at the psychic. "Pamela, baby, what are you doing? You're scaring your sister and your niece. You know that, right?" Christina spoke forcibly to her sister, and she tried not to fall into shock. "Give me the gun, Pam." Christina slowly stood up after moving her daughter off her lap. "I'm so sorry, Christina," Pamela sobbed. And then the woman aimed her gun at Christina. She didn't want to point the gun at her sister, but it was an involuntary movement of her arm. Christina slowly approached her sister with caution. She couldn't believe that she was negotiating with her sister over not shooting her. "I loved him too," Pamela told her sister, with tears streaming down her face. "You were at work one morning when I came over to see him. He didn't expect me to show up at the house." Pamela paused while wiping a few tears from her face. "Oh, he looked so sexy in his bathrobe. He made me coffee and we talked for an hour." Christina lost her voice for a minute while listening to Pamela confess that she'd had feelings for her husband. "I told him I was lonely. I wished he was mine." Pamela kept her gun aimed at her sister, and she would back away every time Christina would take a step toward her. "When your husband hugged me, I tried to kiss him, but he pushed me away. He told me he couldn't be unfaithful to you. Well, I got mad and I slapped him. He threw me out of the house after that." Christina was listening to her sister, and she couldn't take her eyes off the gun. The young woman kept seeing the gun accidentally going off. She kept seeing someone getting killed in her living room, but she didn't know who it would be. Carol saw something tragic happening in her living room. Since the psychic could see the future, she saw someone being killed in her house. It was a frightening vision of what was to come. While keeping herself calm, the old lady stood up from her recliner and she made her way over to Christina's daughter. Carol wrapped her arms around Brianna when the child cried. She gripped the little girl in her arms while saying a prayer under her breath. I paid a man to kill Brian. I disguised myself so the man couldn't see my face. I'm Brian's actual killer. When you're the big sister, you feel that everything should be yours, including your sister's husband." Pamela released a maniacal laugh, and tears caused her mascara to run down her chin. Her slender and haggard face, that was once beautiful in her youth, was now twisted unnaturally, like a mental patient who was going through electric shock therapy. "You paid a man to kill my husband?" Christina asked in disbelief. "My baby had to see her daddy get shot in his head because of you?" Christina pointed back at her daughter, with her voice elevating. Pamela never said a word. She kept her gun aimed at Christina, and she didn't want to pull the trigger, but she was prepared to shoot her if she attacked her. "You hate me that much? I thought you loved me. I thought you loved Brianna. You killed her daddy." Christina kept talking softly, but she couldn't look at her sister anymore. Christina could feel her heart crumbling. "I'm sorry for killing your baby. I loved your husband too," Pamela said while gritting her teeth. She cut her eyes toward Carol, and she felt her hostility toward the psychic arise again. "It's all her fault. She did this." Pamela fell into a rage while burning her stare into the old lady. Christina watched as her sister aimed the gun now at Carol. "Pam, give me the gun. Please don't shoot in front of Brianna." Christina pleaded with her sister, hoping her words would diffuse the situation. "Oh, you old psychic bitch," Pamela hissed at the old lady. Pamela tightened the grip on her gun, and she was about to pull the trigger, but she hesitated. "Mommy!" Brianna screamed as she watched her auntie aim her gun back at her mother. The little girl wanted to run toward her mom, but Carol clenched her small body in her arms. "It's okay, honey. It'll be okay," Carol whispered to the little girl, while holding the child against her chest. Carol cradled the child as she tried to use her arms to shield Brianna from the violence that was unfolding in her living room. "I'm sorry for what I did to you, Brianna." Pamela whispered her last words to her sister, before raising the gun to her head and pulling the trigger. An explosive pop echoed throughout the room. "Mommy!" Brianna freed herself from Carol and ran toward her mother, embracing her. "Hi, baby," Christina whispered down to her daughter. She lifted her daughter up into her arms, with her widened eyes stuck on seeing her sister's body sprawled out on the living room floor. Carol stood up from her sofa. She calmly walked toward Christina and her daughter. The psychic caressed Christina's arm before saying to the young woman, "Your husband wanted you to know the truth, darling. He's at peace now."
Hey there. Thank you so much for taking the time to drop by and listen to this story today. It really means a lot to me. I put a lot of time and effort into making these videos, so it's nice to know that there's someone out there listening. Do me a little favor, would you? Click that like button, leave a comment, and if you really feel like it, why not subscribe too? Okay, happy tales everyone. See you soon.